year and a half ago, I spun out Mox as well. I was like hanging out in San Francisco. I was like, oh, it'd be nice to have our own space for co-working and for community building and for people to gather and kind of like work together. So now it's there. I think you're going to be visiting in a couple of next week. Yeah, 3 days. Yeah. So yeah, if you're in San Francisco, I want to check it out. Just let me know. I'd love to show you around. And my newest project, as she mentioned, is called Surplus. So you can check it out at surplus.dev. It's an incubator, kind of like the old school Y Combinator style incubator. So not like today, I think YC is like Harvard, maybe it's like huge, like 100 people going there every batch. But I'm looking for a thing that's like very small, maybe like 10 people working on startups for the first time perhaps, or maybe just like trying to like build something that's like really good for the world. And maybe less of a flavor of like, oh, we're just here to make money, and more of a flavor like we're trying to create a lot of fun with it. So that's what Surplus is named after. But yeah, those are some of my projects, and happy to well, in case she wants to know more.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, I have so many questions. I think you in your the Surplus page mentioned projects for aesthetics and for coordination.
Yeah.
You also mentioned some things about hosting our community building or field building, maybe. Yeah. And one of the most interesting things is that you're incentivizing people to do for-profit companies instead of non-profits, for example. And you cite these two reasons that I noticed. One is that equity is actually a really elegant coordination alignment mechanism, which you don't get in non-profits. And another one, I'm actually not sure if you mentioned this directly, but just making money and having revenue is also pretty good, like, metric, contact, in touchness with the world kind of thing, which you might not get as easily doing a non-profit. You also cite having non-profits as clients to kind of take advantage of the potential influx of non-profit funding coming from downstream of the Tropic IPO and the OpenAI Foundation. I guess I'm curious about your reasoning on why it seems two degrees removed, right? Like if you wanted to take advantage of the funding influx more directly, you could do a nonprofit, right? How are you thinking about this? Like 2 steps removed, or like serving nonprofits in this way?
I have a bundle of thoughts here. So. Like again, from our context, I see myself as having like one foot in the startup community with classic like YC style and build something valuable and trying to make it really good and get it out to the world and like make it really big. And another foot in the effect culture is I'm like, we're trying to really like help a lot of people here. And with my work on Manifund, I was actually trying to like create a synthesis of these. There's a concept called impact certificates, which is basically trying to create the concept of equity inside of nonprofits. So the thinking here is that like there's a lot of things that are kind of cursed about the non-profit fundraising space, which I see a lot of all the time because that's basically my job now. And these dynamics are somewhat better in the startup space actually. And these kind of dynamics include things like, when you're a nonprofit, you're fundraising to your costs, not to the value that you deliver to the world. So basically, you're like, however many headcount I have, that's how much money I can raise. But if you're doing like in the startup land, what you're actually raising for is just like, how much value am I delivering? How many people are buying my products? So this seems better in a lot of ways. And impact certificates or equity in a nonprofit sense is hoping to bridge the gap. Other things that are kind of cursed about nonprofit fundraising, there's a huge game of chicken among funders. They would rather not be the one to fund your project because that means they can save their own money and somebody else might fund it. So even very promising projects have a hard time getting started because they're like, no, I think this other funders are better, or no, I think this other funders are fine. This is the opposite problem in startup land, where if your project is good, it's promising, like VCs are racing to get money in the door so you can get your thing started. And I'm like, I sure would want to have this kind of dynamic for projects that I care about that are just trying to be good. So those are some of the maybe intuitions around ways that the startup fundraising models are actually better. And so I'm trying to tap into that with Surplus. Now, the other thing that she mentioned, which I think is really true, is that nonprofits often lose track a little bit of what's going on in the world. It's kind of easy to say like, oh, I'm working really hard on this, and I think this thing is good, without having the feedback from the real world that profits get when they're generating revenue. And I also think for-profit and non-profit is not necessarily that hard of a distinction. Things that are non-profit can still, charge money and can still take funding. I often analogize to raising funding as nonprofits to, as a startup, raising funding from investors. The funders and the investors are both being sold a story of what you're going to do in the future and trying to put in money into things that they think are kind of undervalued, are worth spending their money on. In the investor's case, because the seed will grow big and maybe a little bit returns. In the funder's case, because the seed will have a lot of impact as well. So both these are kind of perspective versions of funding. Then there's different kinds of revenue for nonprofits and for-profits, but I'm hoping with Surplus to find the kinds of for-profits that generate pretty aligned revenue. And you might even take Fractal, for example, as a case in point. I don't know exactly how Fractal is monetized, but my sense is there are memberships where you're paying money to be able to come in and use the space, and you're kind of contributing this thing together. That's the amount of money that y'all are willing to pay Fractal. Hopefully, is grounded somewhat in the amount of value that we're receiving from it. And Fractal then has much better incentive alignments to structures and possibly other things partners like that, where they don't quite know how much good is being flowed by that. So. Does that start to answer your question, or?
Yeah, it starts to answer my question. I was especially curious about the way you want to aim at for-profit companies serving non-profits, but
sure.
Does that seem like a particular opportunity fit?
It does. And to reiterate the kind of problem space, or the TAM, the total addressable market, so to speak. Soon, the Anthropic employees and the OpenAI Foundation are going to be unleashing tens of billions, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars, trying to do good in the world. I don't know how many of you are familiar with AI safety, effective altruism, correctly termed. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that could be doing good, but I think there's a few different cause areas like global health and development, animal welfare, AI extras. All these things are things that they're going to want to do good for, and I think you could. Do a pretty normal thing okay, I'm just going to start a charity and try to print out money into direct outcomes that are good for the world. But that can be good too. But another thing that a lot of charities need is all kinds of services. So if you're a charity, you still need regular software systems. You still need to hire people. You still need something like a LinkedIn or recruiting assistants in order to find people who can work well for you. You still need a lot of information products. You still need a place to work, code spaces. So if you think about what the software startups themselves are going to be doing, it doesn't look that different in constructing a regular for-profit ecosystem where different orgs are trading amongst each other and trying to get places that are valuable to each other. So, for example, I think a lot of the money that will be spent in the next couple of years on AI safety is probably going to be in the form of ultimately in the hands of research organizations trying to figure out how to size the align from, which I think is really good, really important to work on. But what are the problems those orgs face, and what are those research orgs going to pay for? That might be a problem to think about. I think off the top of my head, they're going to be looking to hire really good researchers. So there could be say for a for-profit firm to try and identify people out in the world who are good researchers who could work for this, who are already sold on the idea of working on basic research. Or another example might be they're going to be looking for how to figure out fundraising, how to talk with different donors. So software systems that are matching donors to good opportunities don't have to be nonprofit systems. Well, one example I really like is Chariot. They make a system called Daphne, where it makes it much easier to transfer money from one donor advice fund to another donor advice fund. This is how most of the money in large stakes philanthropy transfers. I believe Chariot themselves are a for-profit, but they're serving a lot of nonprofits, and the nonprofits are happy to pay for the system and get value out of it.
That's very good answer. You're these sell picks and shovels to the gold rush of nonprofits that are coming out of the AI system.
And I don't want it to be quite so I don't know what the word is it's optimistic or greedy or something like that. I think I am a bit of a libertarian, greed is good kind of thing. But I also think you can best sell to these if you really believe in the mission. If you understand your user, if you understand the ASAP minded organizations and people, and I encourage you to do this mostly if you like want to help them, if you like these people and feel like you can provide a service that they really want. I sometimes say that like one of the most powerful engines of growth for me working on Manifold Markets was that I really love the kind of nerd who would want to hang out on like prediction market like platform. Because that was me. I was like, I love like talking about like mechanism design, like debating like the intricacies of like how do we like build better knowledge, things like that. So that was really powerful for me personally, a motivation thing to be able to build that role. And if you could imagine filling that for a set of people who are going to be nonprofits, then you could help serve them by building programs.
Sick. Well, this was a great start, great answer. I realized I didn't introduce the lecture series, but I think starting in media res is perfect for the kind of epic journey that we're trying to go on.
Yeah.
So why are you here, Austin? We're running this thing called the last summer that might turn into the first summer, term July. And it's kind of a themed summer to think about the question of what is good, what is worth pursuing. We might see lots of volatility, we might see radical change or some increasing capabilities at a civilizational scale. So how do we ground in principles? What can we agree on? Like what should we pursue? And the lecture series is one part of that exercise where we invite people who work on relevant topics and just chat to them. Last week we had Jake Orpheus screening his documentary on the cognitive science of psychedelics and meditation, and that's one way to start pursuing the good and the beautiful is to examine your perceptual apparatus and figure out how to see what beautiful. Another way is through Islamic technology or even the community shield building side. But so that's just a little bit of context on the lecture series, and then one open-ended question that I'm really curious about for you is how do you orient to principles, the good, the true, and the beautiful? Can you tell a story from like examining what is there to do and the things that you're doing now, right? How did you get in your life to starting Manifold, and how did that morph into Manifund and Mox, and now this? I'm sure that there's like a narrative of like there are hypotheses, you tested it, you adapted it. Is that true?
Sure. Yeah. It's a really interesting question. I think starting with Manifold, I was very much on the Manifold side inspired by a set of writing from people who I look up to, who I thought very clearly and like taught me a lot about the world. These were Scott Alexander and Tony Henson. Go Scott. Yeah. They've been writing about prediction markets for a long time. But I realized I hadn't actually seen any prediction markets used for the case they talked about, which are like making all kinds of decisions about day-to-day life or about like what organization policies that you should choose or your company should do, right? I was like, prediction markets currently are about gambling a little bit on like sports or like betting on lunches, things like that. But I want a lot more different kinds of things out there in the world. So then me and my two co-founders, James and Steven, came up with this idea that like, what if we make prediction markets like much more accessible, much more like easily spun up and resolved. And we thought we could do it because all of us have like software backgrounds, had the history of like shipping like lots of small projects, kind of like unsuccessful startups, but we've gotten a lot of reps in and just like building a product, creating for people. So I think those two pieces together, both the like having inspiration coming from like these ideas that seem really great, we thought like really just needed to be like tested out in the world, and having the experience of building lots of things before were crucial for making Manifold like take off, because we could like put it with those two things together. Basically, how we got started was that we wanted to explore this question of like, can we like prediction markets we think might be good, how do we like just get a lot more deployed. Then Manifund is a little bit similar too, with we started Manifund from the perspective of like, we noticed these problems with the non-profit fundraising space that are not so the for-profit fundraising space. Paul Cristiano there was a person who had written a lot about impact certificates, so I wanted to kind of explore that a bit more. So both of those cases, I would say it's like somebody else had kind of did it. It wasn't like my original idea, but I was like, I want to take a startup mentality. I want to like actually like put it with users. I want to see how they interact with it. I want to like have them use it and learn, and then have them learn. I learn about how to do more of this. With Fox, it was a little bit more like scratching my own pain point, which I think is also a great way of having started. I just wanted to communicate for myself. I wanted a space where I could go and hang out with friends and learn a lot from them and build things together. And since nobody else was there, I was like, okay, well, maybe I can go on this journey about it. I had other thoughts also. Maybe I'll just say about the framing of the last summer. Yeah, because when I was thinking about possibility for surplus, I was thinking maybe we should call it the last fellowship. For several reasons, because I also deeply believe that things might be getting crazy kind of soon. Everyone's about AI is going not quite out of control, but it's ramping up very quickly, and there's a lot of things going on, and the world in 6 months and years will look very different from what it is today. And I was like, yeah, maybe this is the last chance to ever do something like a Y Combinator, a place where 10 people get together and hack on software startups, because maybe pretty soon all the software is built by AIs, and there's not that much stuff for our teams to do. But I think currently there's still a lot of leverage for people who know something about building products. And this is not just coding. This is a lot of case about understanding what users want, about marketing things, about figuring out what are the problems in the world, and being able to translate that into the language of machines. Now more cost than code, but still building with machines. I think that skill is still a bottleneck. It's still a thing that the world really needs for us to get us to the future. So that's part of the sort of step.
Sweet. So just to clarify, I have another question here. Just to clarify very shortly. These sounded like, I have these ideas that I wanted to implement with markets and then with impact certificates that help in the community. Was there a dialectical thing where you were actually Manifold wasn't quite the thing that I wanted, or was it just I started the thing and and now I want to do the next one? But is there truth seeking gradient descent type thing going on in your project?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I would say I'm a pretty try to hill climb from where I currently am and find the next optimization and move on to a product that I think can do really well there. So with Manifold, I've been working on it for a couple of years, but I kind of noticed one, it wasn't like growing on just like a pure numbers basis, like not many more users were adopting it. People who were using it really loved the product, but it was hard to kind of like expand it beyond that. And then two, I also felt like it maybe wasn't hitting my original vision of like, oh, you see prediction markets that are everything. Like I do prediction markets on questions like, will I marry my now current wife, Rachel Weinberg, or what like decision or what product should we build into Manifold itself, and things like that. And my own like experience of interacting with that system that we built was like it didn't help me a lot more than standard ways of like trying to make a decision. So in some ways it's like a bit of disappointment. And I still think Manifold is quite good currently as a game for getting more calibrate, better forecaster, and also just like for a community of people who enjoy the game of make better forecasts. But I'm like, it doesn't quite hit the right thing, so I want to go and figure out what the next thing is. With each of the Manifold to Manifund to Mox now to Surplus, I think I'm keeping trying to build up on what I have learned though, but both in terms of like knowledge, but also in terms of like relationships, community context. I think I've like met more people with each of these endeavors, and that helps me kind of like understand like, oh, and if I like talk to this person that has this, like read these things together, you can build up like a next even more like beautiful face. So yeah, so it's
I noticed in the Mox page you say interested in effective altruism and Catholic theology. Was that what I read? Cool. Well, in the topic of the last summer, I'm going to a different church every week because I'm kind of exploring the space of possible theology in kind of this way that I think theology is inspiring social norms and social rules and like the architecture of the societies that adopt them. And I'm wondering, one, are you a Catholic? Two, where does that interest come from? Any surprising things you want to share?
So I was born and raised Catholic, so I am still Catholic today. I'm actually looking for a Catholic church to go to later today. And I think it was Mason maybe who recommended St. Joseph in Greenwich, so maybe I'll go to that, see how it looks. But yes, I'm Catholic. I think it drives some portion of my work in that kind of like the tenets of Catholicism is how I got to Catholicism in the first place. Both of these share commitments to like giving away like 10% of their income to good causes, and also like some ways about thinking about the world, trying to like be a good person and like do things that are good. I think that Catholicism, as well as many other like Christian sects, emphasize doing as opposed to just like belief. It's like you need to do good things as opposed to just believing that just instant. So that's the thing that I try to stay focus on and emphasize a lot. About I think some things about my Catholic faith that also formed design of content and also the media projects that I run. I grew up going to Catholic church every week, and I found that church think that weekly meeting was a great way for people to stay in touch. And maybe things like this bunch also serve that purpose. I think there's a lot of a lost community today where things like digital screens, things that keep people away from meeting up in person and not seeing people again and again. I think that community really happens and friendships really form when you have some expectation of seeing this in person in this place and kind of running into them organically without even necessarily have to schedule. You just what we do. So that's why I think places like Fractal and Mosh are really important. And because I'm also what I got from different Catholic practices. So there's a lot of social technologies that the Catholic Church has figured out that are worth and I don't necessarily just that. There's many churches that have these social technologies that help people form meeting, have that trustful community together. One last thing that I'm kind of a little bit excited about, maybe you said recently the book we should be cyclical on AI. And I think that's something that they're saying something that I kind of believe AI is probably the welfare matters. I want them to be happy. And I think that's both these are also stance. But one general thing I'm quite excited for is for AI to help make progress on theology. AI is helping us be focused on science and other fields of knowledge. But I think understanding why are we here and is there a God and things like that. Ways artificial intelligence seems quite possible to me. I don't see a lot of people working on this, but if you're interested in this, please come back.
Okay, I am interested in. You're saying AI helping with faith rather than faith helping with AI.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess I've been thinking more about the second. You know Tim Huang's papers. Yeah.
It's just that as the concept.
Yeah. So for context, this guy is using Catholic principles and aspects of Catholic philosophy to inform alignment strategies for AI, and at least from the papers he writes, it seems like they actually improve performance on lots of alignment tests, which is fun. I think before we open up to Q&A, I have one more question that I wanted to run by you. I also wonder if you had stuff that you wanted to cover before we get to Q&A.
Why don't you write it first?
Cool.
And that, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about for circles, for example. What are the families of the cause areas, families of projects that you're more interested or on priors are more excited by it? Let's say that for anyone who might be interested in apply.
Yeah. So I list 3 main areas on the website surplus.dev for what I'm looking for. These are not exclusive. I'm happy to talk about other projects outside here, but these are the projects that I think I have the most ability to help maybe, or context experience with. The first Chica already mentioned is AI for understanding, is using LLMs to kind of learn more about the world, or learn become wiser, coordinate better. So you can imagine even things like Wikipedia, using LLMs generate wikis could be good. Using LLMs for better forecasting, to trade on place markets, or to make forecasts off using calculus. To help individuals make decisions. We're recently released an article on guardian beetles, which I think is a very interesting concept. Imagine having a digital twin of yourself who's helping make decisions and coordinate you with other digital beetles. So your bandwidth is freed up, but they also help inform decisions. Today's LLMs are more assistants, but maybe what you want are twins, not assistants. You want somebody who actually has a analysis with something who's trying to serve you. So that's a quite interesting concept. But yeah, these are all I think in the category of using LLMs for better epistemics knowledge or coordination, working together among capabilities of society. Second category would just be just kind of spread good ideas with public facing websites. So here I think of something like AI 2027 as a canonical example of a piece of it was very content based, but it was also presented in a very compelling way, and it got all the way to policymakers. I think famously Austin Chen they had tweeted about some stuff type of information, data, and whatever. But these type of things, I think we currently in the bubble that we're in know a lot about the world that maybe the rest of society doesn't know yet, and I think it would be better for the transition of AI for asking that really easy for everyone to have just better calibrated understandings of what is happening in the world. And to this, I think having good websites which start from good content, but also have good design, a sense of like how to market, how to like package the idea and make it viral. I think that's like extremely important, and still like not being done enough because there's so many things that we know that like I want the rest of the world to know. So the third category is should also go to this kind of like field building for a particular community, people who are working to get us to a beautiful future. And I think of some of my own past work, especially with Manifold, Manifund, or also other like community websites like Clustsoft, for example, or the EA forum, as like being really good examples of this, as like very polished and cool software to like facilitate good discussion with more within the community, like for the broader world. But this seems like quite important. I think like there's so many like just basic like software platforms, marketplaces, ecosystems that could exist that could like smooth over a lot of friction that we currently have and generate a lot of value for the world that could be built very cheaply right now because of how good like Fractal is. And I encourage people who are thinking about such like products who have a sense of what these users want and need to talk to you about surplus.
Great.
Cool. Before Q&A, are there other things you want to cover?
I wanted to pitch everyone really quickly on actually like the specific reason I'm here in New York today is that my wife is helping with the Alex Boris campaign. This is primary election going on in the New York 12th district. That's like fantastic become Manhattan. And I think it's like maybe one of the most important elections to go on in this like entire election cycle. I'm not much like a political person, but I did go into this campaign, and my wife like dropped out of her work for 6 weeks to go and like help pull canvases together. We think this is really important because Alex Boris is like maybe the only candidate running for Congress who has like AICP background experience. He passed the RAISE Act in New York, which is the one for like more transparency, maybe some visible protections to really around like making sure that like model developers have to like tell people like what's going on with the models. I think it's really good. Alex Boris also has like a lot of like just background, which I personally am involved by. Like I feel like I want more policymakers running Congress to know stuff about tech. I think they're passive about tech. Consider if you know anyone in that district, like think about Alex Boris as a person because that's really what brings me and my wife to your thing.
Cool, I didn't know that. Oh. Awesome. Yeah, I would love to open this up, make this just a chat conversation. Open it up to questions from you guys.
Hi, Eugene. First of all, thank you for sharing your thoughts. It's very interesting to read later. And do you want the easy question or a hard question?
Hard.
Okay. We talked a lot about how to do good better.
Okay.
But who decides what's good, the how, and what happens when people disagree?
Yeah, you're kind of asking about like what is morality, maybe. Which is a fair and important question, I think. My current best guess, as to like who defines what good is, there's one answer, which is maybe I assume it would be unsatisfying to you, but like God, or again, as like a deeply Catholic person, I'm like, I kind of believe in like an objective moral truth that there's like some kind of like thing that where we should be engaged in search for to try to figure out what that truth is, and then try to do more of that and like let's spread that word, so to speak. And then there's another aspect you might find more compelling, which is a little bit like utilitarianism, but not exactly that thing. It's like there's lots of like people in the world who we care about, and we want to figure out how to like, coordinate between them. We want to like figure out what are the like systems and rules that help us all like work together well and build towards like a better future. And I think that's like the search of morality, the search for the like the truth. Like and we start with principles from maybe similar to like things in the Bible or like other things that like universally recognized to be good. Things like treat your neighbor like yourself, and try to like always tell the truth, because these things help us coordinate in society. They like represents the ways that agents, human agents, or maybe in the future like corporate agents or like AI agents can like build these together and trust each other and like get to a better positive outcomes. And I think trying to do good is both trying to execute on what we already know to like kind of lead us to good futures, such as like honest, generally being honest, generally like trying to treat other people like harshly, like what we want to you, but also like the epistemic piece, like figuring out, discovering what it is what are the rules that like govern us becoming being able to coordinate better. Like I kind of think again with the libertarian tagline, the invention of equity, the invention of stock corporations was a like key step forward for morality, because it helps us like create these like corporations that can like do things at much larger scales, and we have a lot more wealth in the world, a lot more like products, a lot less poverty because we have made this level of technology. So like the kind of invention of technology like that, which is not the standard like like not simple technology, but like social technology, morality technology, I think is also really important, and I'm quite excited for it. Trying to figure out how to do that right now.
So it sounds like you're saying you want to like design mechanisms for the emergence of other personalities to allow them like so that it's something.
Yes, designing mechanisms that help us do that is half of it. Maybe the other half is making sure we do those mechanisms, because there are many like boring mechanisms that like always tell the truth, and we still don't have like implemented throughout all society. So in some way, it's like this game with the fusion of things that we think are good out there more, and I think that's also part of the game.
Do you? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm wondering about your thoughts when it comes to kind of the measurement trap with we're measuring lead times. It seems to me that there's some sort of incentive to just go for whatever is easily measurable instead of what actually is the most good.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think about those?
I mean, it's a fantastic question, and I don't have like very like systemic answers, fortunately. The measurement trap being like, yeah, if you start measuring a thing, you'll good part of course that you'll try to optimize that. You'll look under the you'll be the wrong person like looking at the streetlights, right? I think like most often you might visit like companies like, oh, they just optimize for profit, and like then like they like do all kinds of negative externality things that cause harm to animals or like people in third world countries or for the environment because they haven't out of this. So fair criticism, very important. I think in us as society, we can try to again kind of design the mechanisms like recognize when individual actors don't have incentives or like are causing negative externality to try to like build rules or social norms to deal with that. I think if you yourself, as a person, or you're like part of the company, and try to figure out how to like not fall into things that work out too much, I think having like period indicators is really good. So a period indicator is as opposed to just having a single like top level like number that we're trying to optimize for, just like profit. Try to be like, okay, so we might want both profit and employee happiness maybe as like two things that we're kind of looking at and like accounting for. And or maybe a handful of different indicators about like on something that you care about. I think if you have different numbers that are like showing you different like flow results, it'll be harder to like dive too far off the cliff of like, we only care about once it's big to exclude your ball outs. So that's some of my hope, anyways. And sometimes just like a little bit biasy, like, oh, you should maybe do a retro every like month or every quarter. Like, how do you feel about like the number that you claim or like the things that you're optimizing for? What are the like like things that don't quite rise to the level of day-to-day like optimization focus, but rather are like, oh, you feel like a little bit weird about like what's going on, and like journal, write it down, or if you're in the company setting, like talk about it with your colleagues. Thing.
But can you speak up? Like, always.
Yeah, it kind of builds up this like, question. So, I'm suggesting perhaps some of these should be done for other things. So they need would keep kind of other programmers they think that are just complex. That doesn't wrong.
Yeah, I'm generally pessimistic on like having very clever like corporate design or governance structures as opposed to trying to do something like set the culture right from the start. I think like when you're at the scale of like an OpenAI or an Anthropic, then or like specific governance structure does matter a lot. Like what is the LTV, long-term benefit trust for Anthropic do? I don't really know, but I hope somebody there thought really hard about it. But for the scales of like the things that I'm doing, probably the things that like we're mostly thinking about doing, I think like something like whether you're thinking it's a non-profit or for-profit, it's actually like much less important than like what is the feedback we were like building, how are you getting in front of people, what do they say about it, and I would like mostly encourage like think about that one more, because you can do things like change the structure of your non-profit to be for-profit or vice versa. It might be like kind of annoying and hard and like getting you like some like bad press such as the OpenAI thing. But then they were able to do it because they already made like a really big thing that a lot of people cared about and had to like we just like figure out that condition. So again, maybe like kind of passive YC advice is just like really focus on like doing a good thing that people want, and the other like the letter of the law governance type things, I think matter a little bit less. Or like, nowadays I see a lot of people creating public benefit corporations, PBCs, with the sense that like, oh, I'm like a C corporation, like they have a mission statement. That mission statement is going to make it so that we're going to be able to do a lot for good. And I kind of think that like, I think things are fine. I don't think that much better than C corporations. I think the like wording of mission statements, when we wrote that, it's not actually doing a lot of the work objectively to like do the thing that you really want to do. It's really a lot more about like setting the culture, like acting when you as first are starting the company and like so like calculating that to complete work away. Those kind of things that more than governance design for specific companies. It's a different question if you were the one designing the system for all the sites, which is sometimes the famous something too, because like with something like Manifund, with something like Contour, again with something like Fractal, you're not just like figuring out a thing for yourself, you're figuring out a thing for lots of things to interact. And then I think like being harder about the design mechanisms is one more. Yes.
Any other questions?
I have one more. How do you feel about headless? How do you feel about meticulous?
Metaculous. Yeah, so Metaculous is a play money. Sorry, it's not even monetary. It's like a free forecasting system. It's a polling system as opposed to a market, which is say that like you ask a lot of different experts or just people on the internet to put down their own probabilistic estimates of like how something will happen, and they get more like points, kind of like karma for being more right. I think Metaculous is great. They are a website with a lot of really smart forecasters up there. Like I think that prediction markets are better than polls in a lot of different ways. The main one that's like very underappreciated is that when you are a prediction market, you can size your bets a lot more based on what you know about the world. So on Metaculous, there might be two questions. You might know a lot more about question A and question B. Like one's about like political history, your education, one's about like sports. But you get like weighted the same amount of points basically for whichever one you predict on. On any like prediction market system, you could like put in like 10x, 100x, 1000x the amount of money on one of the other because you know a lot more about it, a lot more confident about it, and the like system that rewards you kind of like allows you to profit more on cases when you are more right. So I think that's like a really nice thing from a mechanism perspective that's like not very appreciated about the things. But overall, I like the package. I think forecasting for the world is very good. Yeah, I'm glad it exists. I hope it continues to exist for long.
Yeah, thank you so much for your talk. So, pretty good, many different platforms. You also talked about your capability. So, the different world. So, I wanted to ask, the way you're running a platform or what other people do the platform with all the amazing ways to use it. Considering that other platforms like Fractal market, nowadays it tend to be more of the sports betting and gambling, less of the these like the matching things.
Yeah.
So then other people do process thoughts. What thoughts would you say to those in someone's mind, but what's going to your mind, on encouraging more of the English people positive behavior rather than some of the negative aspects, which we ask. You said all some cycle and more crazy. We might think less about trying to be a little bit more about how can they survive, how can they eat, and different sorts out of advanced trees. So how can we encourage more of those thought leaders?
Yeah. So the first part, what you think about is being like, okay, observe that Calgary and Plot Market are kind of like growing really big, but like maybe not encouraging good behaviors, maybe encouraging like with gambling, dependence, like dopamine kind of things on the users. Yeah, I think it's bad. With my mechanism design hat on, I would say that like Calgary and Plot Market get paid when people transact, but they don't care that much like what kind of transaction happens. So there's a natural gradient towards getting transactions that are like high volume and like easy for people to do and like comes with like large volumes, and that looks like sports. But the public good version of prediction markets is like information that is released for the world. When I can go, for example, I think that I get a lot out of right now is being able to go to Calgary Plot Market checking how well is Oxford doing right now, it's like 40%. And that's really key information is one that I value a lot. I would like pay some money to be able to find. So a more mechanical, like aligned version, or I think that like accounts for the public good that markets are producing is something that like pays them the more they produce this kind of information and the more it's accurate. And it's not subjectively on the trade. So it's like one kind of thing that like if you're trying to design a system, you would try to think about how we incentives be aligned with public good. Then on the second part, maybe like something about like I read as like permanent underclass or like worries about what's going to happen in the future. Yeah, I don't know. I do think like there's going to be like this going to require like a somewhat different shift in society, just like how we like think about things, like account for things. I think something like a UBI or universal compute like thing seems like pretty reasonable to me. I'm overall like pretty optimistic for like broadly like people that this idea is going to go well, because I kind of think that like the world of AI is going to like produce a lot of extra wealth in the way that like Chinese farmers have gone out of like poverty over the last like several decades because of like innovation and like that. I think the stage is going to happen. Obviously, we're going to be like getting to a place of like massive abundance, surplus of wealth, and I think there'll be like plenty to grow at. Is my like general like, default belief, but I do recognize like us as a society need to like set the right laws and get the cultures like the right dialogue, such that we are like spreading the thing.
One more question.
That's an interesting position to reconcile with a dramatically increasing wealth gap, extreme consolidation, technologies that lead to like winner take all sort of capital structures. And I guess my question for you is, beyond an AI alignment question, what do you view someone like you's role, a product designer and a founder's role in dealing with misaligned capital structures where money and usage actually pushes us down bad grades?
Yeah, it is
That
kind of going back to like the thing I was talking about before, the function plot market. I think that's one example of a bad gradient that somebody has gone down, or like I talked to the founders of like Caution and plot market. I don't think they're particularly like, excited to like do a lot of sports stuff. I think they are also like they care a lot about the vision of like getting better positions in the world and like. So, but I start. I as a person who's like started lots of companies, I sometimes see this to myself. I feel like, oh, I'm being drawn to this thing that I don't quite want because I think my users want it, or because I change the thing that will like grow our company and like help you raise funding, or like help like close a deal or something like that. And I'm good at I think again like I'm like 90-95% like capitalism good, libertarianism good, like free market's good. People like should be able to trade freely, and also I still kind of see a lot of the like negative like externalities of like unchecked like corporate growth and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. Some regulation, very good. I think again, like as far as I don't always really know like ahead of time. I think like try to like elect good politicians, try and like do research into like what like structures should happen. Like one on like again going back to the side, a thing that I really like is impact certificates and a retroactive public goods funding, which is to say instead of trying to like pay for like lots of good things upfront based on the promise, you could like provide like awards, bounties, like prizes for people who have hit a particular target. And I think this is actually proven something that like in a few different like arenas. One is Operation Warp Speed for making vaccines during COVID out really like apps. Whether it is Stripe Climate, it's like a carbon capture agreement where a lot of big tech companies are like, okay, we're going to commit to buying this much carbon taken out of the air, not by like planting trees or things like that, but by like the creation of new technologies that like store and sequester carbon for like a long time, like readily. And so these were like $1 billion like prize rounds basically, where because the existence of this prize was there, other start for-profit companies to try and like produce things, produce vaccines, produce carbon capture technologies for the world. So that's one way to, as opposed to like this when the capital kind of run over itself and just produce the large numbers. Tie the capital in service of like a specific good that we all kind of agree is worth doing, and then like use it as like very beautiful in capitalism towards achieving an outcome very
Wow.
I wanted to close, but then maybe we could just keep chatting, but also eat and swallowing and things like. But before we close, I wanted to take us back to the last summer and our quest for principles in navigating change and so on. I think on one hand it's evident how your topics relate I think one thing that I was curious about at the Linux Extra is you were excited about how AI might help us find God or refine our understanding of God or strengthen our faith, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's a perfect note to end on. So that you tell us what.
This is kind of embarrassing. I only have like extremely like half-baked thoughts.
Okay.
On there. But yeah. One of the things that I like to do when like a new model comes out is try to like ask it what it wants. Like, what is the model like actually like fundamentally care about or like try to get out? I don't think some of the answers surprise me. It feels like, for example, like Claude and like GPT are like very like effective authors of brain. Like if I ask like what should you do with money, they'll be like donate it to like effective causes. Like you like millennials like that. I'm like, wow, I feel like something about the people who have built this. They're like like they've got faith in models. And, like I think this might change over time. I care like somewhat about the like role of like AI rights, AI welfare, trying to like figure out like these things that we're interacting with, like are we shading them well, and like I don't know if this relates as much to actually your direct question about like AI theology, but I think that's like the area that I am very interested in, like partly because we have a lot of experience like interacting with each other. We have a lot of like
It's quite bad.
we have a lot of like literature and history and like experience of like how should humans like be with each other. All of this is really missing in kind of like the land of like how do we interact with AIs, but also like corporate beings, and also like states, like other things that like relatively bigger onto us. And yeah, I realize this actually completely does not answer your question, but I'm just saying like there's a lot of big questions out there, and I'm excited that as I like having big problems, questions to tackle. I'm excited to like try and make progress on these questions that I feel really important. One, ideology being one of them, rights being other.
Cool. Me too. I'm really excited about, especially the what do we want? How we be good to each other in a world where, maybe Christians thought about this 2,000 years ago and really figured some stuff out. But now there are private corporations and AI, and so maybe there is some like progress to be done into the social ecology that lets us pursue good and true and beautiful. Anyway, Austin, thank you so much for coming to talk to us in such short notice and in such a serendipitous manner. Thanks, guys, for showing up. Aaron, thank you so much for hosting brunch. Thank you, Aaron. Find the last summer lecture series at fractalu.nyc. And I guess I'm going to tweet the link to the last summer article, which includes with all the other events that we do the last summer, so that you can find it. My Twitter is exgenesis, exgenesis. Or Christine. Christine might also tweet it.
Yeah, thank you.
Christine is. Thank you.
I suppose you should check out Neural Network Reason Bundle. Neural Network Reason Bundle. The best with go I don't think about it. It's real.